Chris Perkins is on the Toyota of Hollywood hotline. Before we talk football, I remind you the best place to get geared up is Caneswear in Davie. You're online at caneswear.com. Chris Perkins, a columnist for the Sun Sentinel, writes about the Dolphins. Dolphins have a new GM. Now they've got a new head coach, both of them from the Green Bay Packers. Maybe a lot of people missed the news yesterday because it was kind of a big day in South Florida for football as it was. Do you think that was intentional, Perk? It wasn't how I was going to start, but Perk, do you think that was intentional to kind of let it fly under the radar? Or, hey, we've got him here and the other NFL teams don't care about when you announce a hire and we're not going to give anyone a chance to hire the guy who we want. So be it. It's national championship night, but we've got to make our announcement.
That was it. Hawk. Look, the story was that Jeff Hafley was on his way to Tennessee today, and he was one of the 3 finalists for the Titans job. So really, I think what it got down to for the Dolphins was don't let this man out of the building without a contract or without an agreement. And so that's basically what it came down to. I wish they would have just let UM have the stage alone, but the world doesn't operate that way.
Looks like we've lost our connection to Crowder. What do we know about? He had said that he wanted the next question, but then he froze on the screen. What do we know about Jeff Hafley? I mean, we know he comes from Green Bay, defensive coordinator. Like, what do we know about him?
We don't know a whole lot about him, Hawk. I think that the reason that I give this a thumbs up right now is because it looks like John Eric Sullivan, the GM, has conviction in this hire. Yeah, it's kind of a brother-in-law hire, right, that they worked together for Green Bay for the last 2 seasons. But it appeared that John Eric Sullivan never flinched when Sean McDermott got fired by Buffalo. Now, maybe McDermott had no interest in the Dolphins job, but it appeared that the Dolphins were like, no, Hafley is our guy. I know McDermott is available, but Hafley is our guy. I don't know how it went down in the 7-person hiring committee, Hawk, and that's one thing that I want to find out. Was this unanimous? Was it a majority decision? Did John Eric Sullivan just kind of cowboy the process and say, my boy is going to be our choice? What did Troy Aikman think? Did Troy Aikman have a big voice in the final say? I kind of wonder how it all went down, but the fact that it appears Sullivan showed some conviction in his boy, he didn't flinch when McDermott came up, it makes me think that there's more conviction in this than meets the eye.
Perk, do you like the defensive hire? Because my thought was the quarterback, like you see the Ben Johnson, you've seen, all that other thing. Like the defensive guy, I was a big offensive guy fan.
Yeah, no, you know what, Crowder? What I wanted more than anything was the mentality and the attitude that this guy brings to the team and to the organization. Because I think the Dolphins under Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer, there was a lot of participation trophy mentality. There was a lot of let's be popular type stuff. I want a team that's bringing hard hats and lunch pails to work every day. I think a lot of your defensive coaches have that type of mentality. There's some offensive coaches, Sean McVay and all that, but I like kind of that Tomlin, Flores, Mike Vrabel type of mentality that defensive coaches seem to bring. So with me, it wasn't so much, are you offensive? Are you defensive? Do you have experience? Are you a first-time coach? Bring a butt-kicking mentality to that franchise. That, to me, is the number one thing by far.
Perk, this is the 8th straight head coach that the Dolphins hire with no previous head coaching experience in the NFL. Why would this be any different than the previous 8 that ultimately didn't have success in Miami?
I think that, you know what, Solano, we're seeing a lot of success in a lot of different fashions right now, right? Liam Cohen had no experience in Jacksonville. Ben Johnson had no experience in Chicago. Mike McDonald in Seattle. That's another defensive guy, by the way, Crowder. We're seeing it done different ways. Now, look, Aaron Glenn was a total disaster up with the New York Jets, right? But we are seeing it done a whole lot of ways. You don't have to have the experienced guy. You don't have to have the guy who has a Super Bowl like Mike McCarthy, right? He's still out there. You don't have to have anything. You just have to know how to make it work for your team in your situation. That's what I think is kind of exciting about what we're seeing in the NFL right now, is that, this is a landscape where you had coaches like Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh unemployed at the same time for a brief period of time. You had quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow not in the playoffs. You're seeing some unknown guys do stuff and make their name known. Bo Nix, even though we know him, but he doesn't have very many skins on the wall. So I think the coach thing goes along with that, Solana, that we're seeing a lot of different ways to win. And so even if he's a first-time coach, that shouldn't be a deterrent. Just make sure you have the right guy.
And Perk, you bring up Bo Nix, and we know who's going to the conference championship games, the quarterback names, and who was playing last weekend. With Tua, Perk, what do you think? What should happen? I'll ask it this way. What should happen, and what do you think will happen with having a $50 million quarterback that got benched and a backup quarterback that got overpassed in Zach Wilson by a 7th-round quarterback and Quinn Ewers? This quarterback situation is crazy, and it has to be settled before the season starts next year.
You know what, Shannon? This is interesting. So this was my column today that hasn't posted yet. I asked, can you connect the dots to Malik Willis, the Green Bay dots, right? John Eric Sullivan, Jeff Hafley, Malik Willis, who's going to be a free agent. I'm sure that Green Bay is going to make him a priority to re-sign, but should the Dolphins pursue him, my thing is, you don't have to find your quarterback, your franchise quarterback, in 2026. Maybe you find him in 2027. But what I think should happen, I think they should cut Tua loose and make him a post-June 1st cut, absorb the $99 million in 2 years, $67 million this year, $32 million next year. You bring in a starter to compete with Quinn Ewers for the starting job. You do still have Cam Miller, the recently signed kid from North Dakota State, on the roster too. But you bring somebody in to compete with Quinn Ewers. If you want to draft a quarterback in the 3rd round, okay, go ahead. I'm not drafting one in the 1st and 2nd rounds because of who's available and my desire to build up the trenches. And then I see who's out there in the free agent market as far as quarterbacks, Crowder, but I let them play it out this year. This just doesn't seem to be the year to get married to a quarterback, either through free agency or the draft. So I let this season play out. I build up the trenches, and I put more of a priority on the quarterback in 2027 than I do in 2026.
Do you think this whole search worked out the way that Stephen Ross envisioned, Perk? Because I think I've brought this up to you before. I think if he really had planned on getting rid of Mike McDaniel, he wouldn't have been letting him do exit interviews. I think Correct. There would have been kind of this, hey, let's all take a deep breath for a week. Let's shelve the exit interviews. We'll start them a week later. Let's all recalibrate. We'll meet several times and we'll decide what the future is. I feel like he kind of made a rash decision when John Harbaugh became available. And I think he had so many voices in that room. You talk about the committee of 7, that maybe he got, I don't want to say bullied, but maybe got cajoled into making some changes that he wasn't really prepared to do. And if I said to you, when it's all said and done, he's going to end up with, what's his name? John Eric Sullivan?
JS.
Yep.
John Eric Sullivan
Yep.
and Jeff Hafley. I don't think Stephen Ross would have been happy with that or signed up for that. I think he would have been fine with the status quo before a couple of, hey, we'll give a shot to these two guys we've never heard of.
You know what, Hawk? I think you're right. Here's to me the most disturbing thing about this whole situation. It's not that, the story that Darren Waller told us, how Steve Ross came in while Darren Waller was having his exit interview with Mike McDaniel. I'm sure Mike McDaniel, through his time, has had to cut guys in very awkward fashion. These things don't always happen in a clean fashion. That's clumsy. My bigger concern is that Mike McDaniel still had a job on Thursday. Like you say, Hawk, he should have been fired the Monday of Black the morning of Black Monday. I don't see why Steve Ross was going to keep Mike McDaniel, and that is what worries me about the dysfunction in this organization, and it still exists. I don't know if they can overcome the Steve Ross dysfunction. That's just a flat-out bad decision. You were going to keep Mike McDaniel for whatever reason. You told the guy that he was going to have input on finding the next GM, and now all of a sudden he doesn't. This just doesn't smell right. So, look, I'm happy that they ended up eventually doing the right thing and making the clean sweep, and that they have some familiarity with the Green Bay GM hiring his boy from Green Bay as the head coach. That all kind of locks into place. We'll see what happens. But I'm kind of with you. I don't think this is what Steve Ross envisioned. I think clumsily and shamefully and regretfully, he envisioned Mike McDaniel still being the head coach. That really, really worries me.
And Perk, you brought up Liam Cohen, where now the Jaguars, what do they have? 13 wins? Like that, he turned it around. Is that our hope? Is our hope that Hafley comes in and turns the team around just like Liam Cohen did his first year? That's what we're shooting for.
Yeah, that's what you're shooting for, but you also need some staying power, though. So, look, the window is probably only open for 3 or 4 years, as we're seeing in Detroit, right? Because it's not just that players go up and down and their contracts, get more expensive. People start taking your coordinators, right? Ben Johnson was their offensive coordinator. He's in Chicago. Aaron Glenn was their defensive coordinator. He's with the Jets. So with the Dolphins, let's see. We'll see with Jacksonville how long it lasts. We'll see in Chicago. Washington came up very quickly, right? But then Jaden Daniels gets the elbow injury, and we'll see what happens there. Houston, C.J. Stroud, what's happened to him? So that's the first step, Crowder. You want to get off to a good start because we do see these 1 and 2 year turnarounds. But then after that, can you maintain? Can you stay on the top? You don't want to just see this flash in the pan. So it's a multi-layered thing, but you're right. The first step is getting off the starting line like Ben Johnson or Liam Cohen did, and then you take it from there.
And Anthony Weaver, he's interviewing for head coaching jobs. The new coach is a defensive coordinator. Is there any way that Anthony Weaver's here and also Hafley? Like, it doesn't make sense to me to keep the coordinator when you're bringing your defense in.
I think it seems like they just want to break with the past, which, that doesn't hook up with the Mike McDaniel being around on Thursday. But, look, you fired your GM, you fired your assistant GM, you fired the 2 co-directors of player personnel, right? Adam Ingroff and Anthony Hunt. So you wanted to clear out the scouting department. You're probably going to part with Tua. You're probably going to part with Tyreek. So I think Weaver would probably be caught up in that sweep, Shannon, that you just part with the old in almost every way that you can, and you get a new mentality. You get, new guts of the team, new people that you're going to rely on. No more Tua, no more Tyreek, and you just figure out a brand new way of doing it. I think Anthony Weaver gets caught up in that wave of change.
True or false, Perk? Next season is shaping up just to be a boring, uninteresting season.
Oh, it better not be. Look, again, look at how all these programs turned it around in Washington and Chicago and Jacksonville, Denver. No. That's the mentality I'm talking about, Hawk. You cannot have a GM and a coach come in here and go, well, I guess we got to reset. No, get out of my office with that crap. You see what these other franchises have done. You need to get this team to the playoffs by 2027. Not that somebody's going to be fired if you don't, but that's the mentality you need. That needs to be one of your intermediate goals on the way to winning a Super Bowl. Get this team to the playoffs by 2027. Don't accept any, we don't have a quarterback. Bump all that noise.
But
Get me somebody who has some good.
Easier said than done. How they're hamstrung by the cap. They have a.
I don't want to hear all that mess. I don't want to hear all that mess.
But you have to hear it.
Mentality. We're not accepting participation trophies anymore. Mentality. I'm telling you, don't accept that mess. That's the problem with this franchise.
You have to accept reality, though, don't you? I mean, it's nice.
What was Jacksonville's reality a year ago?
That's fair.
You got a 35-year-old GM and a first-time head coach there. You got Trevor Lawrence making $50 million that he probably shouldn't be making, and you still make the playoffs. Get to the playoffs.
Well, I think their best chance is to have Tua as their starter.
See, that's a winning mentality, Hawk. That's what I'm talking about. Tua can get you there. That's it. Turn that world upside down, baby. There you go.
I don't know. You've got me all confused.
But
Perk, you've got
I
me
know
all...
he does, but Perk brings it up. I got to ask him because Perk brings up Trevor Lawrence, who was the guy that got the big deal and wasn't being successful. But our big deal quarterback, our money quarterback, we benched Perk. Like you have to. I'm not on the lose thing, but we have a $50 million quarterback that we decided not to put in the game for the last couple games.
No, Tua can't be part of it. I bring up Trevor Lawrence. They had a defense to help him, right? To help him make his life a lot easier. Tua is not part of the future. Tua's got to be gone. I bring that up just kind of joking, but look, Trevor Lawrence is not a $50 million quarterback, but that's an excuse. He's got the money that he has. Again, Jacksonville, first-time coach, a 35-year-old GM, first-time defensive coordinator, right? Anthony Campanelli, and they still get to the playoffs. No excuses. Find a way. And I'm not saying this year, but by 2027, get this Dolphins team to the playoffs. Enough excuses in this franchise.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems a little short on actual action plan. I love the motivational aspect of it, but
look, you better find a way. You better find a way, or you're going to be unemployed. You're gonna end up like who was our boy up in New England with the linebacker with the 1 year stay at coach
Mayo.
Rod Mayo. That's right. Yeah, don't be messing around though.
Bring it strong, quick, or you're gonzo.
That's the trend. That's the trend.
I like it. Chris Perkins, read his work in the Sun Sentinel. Thank you, Perk.
All right, guys. What's up?